Welcome. It's nice to finally get to talk with you. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, very well, and you?
I'm doing good. So pretty much just to give you a rundown, you had some questions as far as newsletters goes, and so I wanted to kind of put together this kind of presentation for you and kind of answer commonly asked Beehive newsletter related questions that I think you'll get a ton of benefit from. First off, I just want to start with kind of why I'm pursuing newsletters. I think a lot of people kind of maybe newsletters gets a bad rap. Um, so I wanted to kind of explain why I do this. So it actually started from Nick. He posted this blog article, or I guess newsletter, in 2024 in September, and I read it, and it was the reason that I joined Maker School. For those of you that don't know as well, Maker School is Nick's community where he teaches about automation. That's also where I met Max, and I was just kind of like felt more connected than I ever had been watching Nick's content. I was learning about his bottlenecks. It basically felt like I was reading his journal, and again, I just felt more connected than I ever had been watching any sort of content that Nick posted. And then that prompted me a couple days ago to post my own retrospective, and the feedback and kind of outpour of messages that I got was pretty insane. I mean, I've had clients coming to me, I've had old friends and stuff pick up the phone and call me after seeing this and reading this. Just for example, a couple messages that I got. One of my buddies was like, we hadn't talked in like a couple years, and he's like, let's go surf, let's go grab some coffee or something. So clearly there's something there with newsletters. Like newsletters for me as a founder is, and from what I've seen, clearly connects people, your audience to what you're doing. It's allows the audience to see a different side of you. Um, I even saw this within my YouTube channel, that vulnerability. I was just posting with my shirt off, and people were like, I was getting views, I was getting comments. People were like, "You're changing my life," and I was like, "How is that possible?" And again, for me, the newsletter is the foundation of all this. Bit of a backstory, just a funny story. First paycheck I ever got, I bought this CS:GO weapon. I'm not sure if you play CS:GO,
I
but
do. I
you
did.
do.
I did.
Yeah, you can you know the game. Then you can buy skins and stuff. I
I
bought this
know.
case hardened. Yeah, I bought this case hardened, and it just brought me no satisfaction. Which fast forward to a couple months later, I realized that the impact on people is the most important thing as a founder. And again, newsletters does that. So it's a perfect segue for the next part, which is like your question, which if you want to go ahead and ask that.
Yeah. So obviously, I've been doing like some research about newsletters. I've been wanting to
Yeah.
start my own one. So kind of the first question, of course, would be like, what's the ideal newsletter format for someone like me, who posts on YouTube, LinkedIn, and kind of that sort of content?
Yeah, and then just remind me too, and I guess anyone watching, like what sort of content do you post? Like what's your specialty?
So I build out of automation, out of AI, like project management, CRM
Mhm.
systems, like business operation stuff,
Right.
around agencies and so on.
Perfect. Yeah. So this is, I mean, if I were to like consult you, I'd for sure advise you to start a newsletter. Typically, as far as format goes, six section format. I'll show you an example of what that looks like. 1,000 to 2,000 words. By far, the most important is it needs to be mobile friendly. I think around 50 to 60% of not everyone's subscriber list, but at least some of the clients that I work with, 50% of their audience is on mobile. So be sure it's mobile friendly. And I'll show you an example of kind of what that looks like. So go ahead and zoom in a bit, but you can see here on the left hand side, we have 5 newsletter sections. Context: this is a client I work with. He does AI graphic design. So the way you come up with sections within a newsletter, you have to identify what your audience is struggling with, identify what questions come up often. For Adrian, my client, we posted a poll on Instagram. We emailed his entire email list, and we looked at comments. We looked at his course and community. And again, we just bucketed all these questions into 5 different categories. I guess it ended up being 4, but we found that people typically struggle and want to know about news in the AI space. People complain like there's so much going on. I don't know what's happening. People wanted design inspiration. They wanted tutorials of the week. So we basically just format, and this applies to your newsletter as well for CRMs and automation, like identify what people struggle with and then create newsletter sections on that. Not only are you providing value, but you're also, again, able to educate your audience, and then you show up as an authority. And that results in people coming back week after week. For example, Adrian, he operates at like 50% open rate and a 6.5% click through rate, which is like exceptional for a newsletter. So hopefully that answers the question. Do you have any others like relating to that?
Yeah, I read this somewhere from another person who does like agencies and so on.
Yeah.
And he said like frame it as in like when you're writing,
Yeah.
think of an objection or some thought that
Yes.
your ideal client has in mind, and then you write about that objection. And then you nurture the clients and you like kind of answer all the questions for them to work with you. So I guess that's
Exactly.
kind of the path to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it ends up turning into like, yeah, you're handling objections. Newsletters also book you appointments. It can sell digital products, etc. So 100%. This is another question you had. I'll just let you take the floor.
So obviously I do a bunch of content. I post on LinkedIn, I post on
Hmm.
YouTube, and sometimes on X now. And how do I decide, okay, what content is for my YouTube and then what content is for my newsletter? Because I wouldn't want to repeat myself the same
Okay.
things because people
Okay.
obviously subscribe to the newsletter to get some sort of exclusive or
Right.
interesting information.
Yeah, so that's like, I think that's a pretty, so the way I typically structure is actually the newsletter is like what you copy and paste to other platforms typically. So if you want to go unique, my recommendation is to release the newsletter first. Do some sort of teaser,
Mm.
do some sort of like, you know, something along those lines of like a teaser or comment to get kind of thing. What ends up happening is like, people, if they see the newsletter being the most valuable part of your entire personal brand, again, that's just going to push traffic naturally. um, but like I said in, I guess, the next slide, newsletters should be the hub with value. And then social media typically is like what gets repurposed. It's the stuff that you wrote about in the newsletter. Every week, at least with my clients, I we start with the newsletter and then they take that and apply it for their content. That's how we structure. Of course, you can do it different ways, but then that kind of helps the fact of like the newsletter is the main selling point, and it's like that's what gets released first, and that's kind of like what drives that kind of like FOMO, or like people take action on signing up to the newsletter. I guess the way I think about a newsletter as well is like I posted this over on Twitter, but it's like this newsletter flywheel effect. Newsletters at the heart of it. You have lead magnets you can promote, you can monetize courses, templates, ebooks, obviously authority. You can launch webinars from newsletters. You can promote podcasts, Instagram posts, YouTube posts, LinkedIn posts, etc. And it can all be housed in the newsletter, which I think for founder that's super important to have. And then, do you have any other questions about that as well?
No, I think it's quite clear.
Yeah.
My next question, of course, would be the one you have. So you obviously have an audience, and to the extent you don't want to spam them or like send too much information while keeping quality, right? Because that's the main, like when you're sending newsletters, that should be quality and like you actually put effort into writing it.
Right.
So how often should I publish without also me having the time to, and kind of to avoid burnout in the end?
Yeah. Typically, I advise everybody just do what's comfortable. What's most important is you are able to stay consistent. I say once a week. Like there's no need to do more. You, again, like you said, you don't want to burn yourself out or your audience out. People do go blind to, if you're consistently sending a shitload of emails, just from what we've seen. So that would be my answer: once a week. Be sure you're consistent and make it easy. Like make the newsletter something you just do already. Part of your routine. In other words.
Then, of course, additionally, I have my YouTube, I have my LinkedIn. How should I call to action my newsletter? Because I've included in my description, but is
Yeah.
that enough? Should I like,
Yeah.
hey, there's some secret in my newsletter? Or like, how should I convert my traffic from YouTube, LinkedIn, X to the newsletter?
Yeah. What have you tested with anything currently? I know you're just recently setting up the Beehive newsletter. Have you tried anything, or just really just looking for some advice?
Honestly, I the only thing I've done personally is
Yeah.
it's my description. I hope that they read
Okay.
it, but I don't think
Okay.
it's the best method.
Yeah, it's probably not the best method. What I can say from just, I guess, personal experience is like Instagram, any sort of like comment to get is one of the best ways to get newsletter subscribers. Incentivizing them with something as well is always super important, whether, whatever that is. Maybe it's a custom YouTube video, etc. Um, Two main kind of ways we promote pre-call to actions. So again, I mentioned it earlier, teasing a newsletter 24 hours before it actually releases, or as I said, comment to get kind of giveaways. Typically, if you're able to convert around, usually it's around 50% is a good lead magnet or pre-call to action. That's, you're in the money. You're like right in the right spot. Anything below that, not crazy bad, but like 30 to 50% is usually what we aim for conversions, whether that's impressions on a video, etc. I even have another way as well, kind of converting, is having some sort of a scroll stopper. So 20% of the way, if they're scrolling down your newsletter, this will pop up. This again should also convert around 50%. You have obviously, and I have an example of what an X post could look like. You are kind of teasing it, and then you promote your newsletter below.
Mm.
You have kind of like flexing your newsletter metrics as well. People are always, interested in that. Um, Lead magnets as well. This is a newsletter cheat sheet that I released. Ended up having like a 63% conversion rate, which is pretty damn good. Um, you also have, which we'll talk about a little bit more, you can promote other people's newsletters. So for one of my clients, Adrian, he promotes 4 newsletters, and we've driven over 1,500 subscribers in the past 30 days to the following newsletters. So if you're able to get in the top 4 on Beehive, what ends up happening is you'll start getting newsletter subscribers pushed over to your newsletter. Um, Obviously, there's also a referral program, which I'll speak a little bit more about later. But that leads us to our next question as well.
So should I use a lead magnet, or what tactics should I use to drive? I know you showed a couple
Yeah,
of them, but how do what do I know what works the best?
yeah, I think that's something that kind of just requires testing on something like ManyChat, which I'm not sure how familiar. Are you familiar with ManyChat?
Yeah, to
Yeah,
not an
so you
expert,
can
but I know.
Yeah. You can do split tests and see what magnets convert. I believe LinkedIn and even X has like hypergrowth. There's other tools and softwares for all platforms, and you can kind of see what is converting the best. People, again, I kind of mentioned it earlier, people go blind to lead magnets. Typically, we see like after 30 days, people the conversion rate drops significantly. So every 15 to 30 days, a new lead magnet should be released. Even
Mm.
if it's just a visual, like the thumbnail of it, like that really does matter. Um, so, should I use lead magnets to get signups, or is the newsletter itself enough? I would use both. And of course, incentivizing is the best way to get people to sign up. And then having email gated newsletters is super, super important. I'll kind of show you what that means. But landing pages aim for 50% conversion. Lead magnets, again, aim for 50% conversion. Like it's very possible. Again, you kind of have to work on it pretty often to get these types of conversions. For example, on ManyChat, I mentioned one of the lead magnets we have has about a 56% CTR, but we are always changing the copy. We are always changing the thumbnail within the actual lead magnet. So it really depends on you. Like, again, use both, but be sure you're changing them out very often. Um, this is actually another question that you had as well,
Yeah,
was
exactly.
milestones.
So my question, of course, what subscriber master should I aim for, and to make it more relevant, I guess, to everybody like watching and so on,
Yeah.
what metrics should you expect if, let's say, you have 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, just to make it easy for the math? Let's say you have 1,000 or like 10K. What should you expect, and how many newsletter subscribers should you aim for?
Sure. As far as like what you should expect from 1,000 subscribers revenue wise.
Yeah,
Yeah.
basically.
Okay.
More or
Yeah.
less.
Okay. So as far as like timeline, let's start with that first. aiming for 1,000 subscribers in 3 months, I think, is very realistic. If you're consistently posting on X, if you're posting on YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, etc., you don't have to do all those platforms. I always advise like pick two, get really damn good at them. There's no reason you can't convert 1,000 subscribers over 3 months. 15 to 3,006, then 5 to 10K over a year. That's pretty realistic, just to kind of give you like a North Star to be shooting for. If you want 10,000 in a year, 30 subscribers a day gets you to 10,000 in a year.
Hmm.
So that's kind of the standard that I'm optimizing for, is like, how can we get 30 every day? Anything below that, of course, is fine, but it's like, if you want to see real growth, like shoot for 30, shoot for the moon, right? As far as revenue, that varies industry to industry. So in the automation space, um, where most of the revenue comes from in newsletters is promoting other SaaS products or promoting random tools. For example, maybe you're the ClickUp guy, so you can promote ClickUp within the newsletter. Those can range from anywhere, depending on your subscriber list. Typically 1,000 subscribers, you'll get anywhere between $500 to $1,500 per feature in your newsletter. And that means like they get their own section within your newsletter. And of course, the more subscribers you have, the more you can charge. What's important, and I'll talk about it later, is you have to show whoever you're pitching kind of your revenue, your metrics, open rate, click through rate, the industry you're in. That again has a huge lever as to how much money you make through your newsletter. You also asked about this question as well.
Yeah, so obviously I just started with Beehive, and it's a very comprehensive. You have everything, right? It's
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah,
So what should I prioritize learning? Because there's a ton of things, and I assume that at my stage, everything isn't important, but some
yeah.
are more important than others.
Yeah, I kind of laid out like some of the key things that I think you should have. But just to start, optimizing for a 50% conversion on your landing page, optimizing for 50% conversion on your lead magnets, those are like super, super important. Like you have to figure that out. The automation and stuff is important. Pretty commonly, people do like welcome email sequences, list cleaning sequences, sunset flows. And to explain what that is, when someone signs up, are expectations set? It's just like kind of setting the frame on a sales call, right? Welcome email needs to clearly state what the next steps are, what they're going to get over the next few months or weeks. List cleaning, this kind of cleans your list so that you don't end up with a ton of spam emails or end up in the spam folder. And sunset flow is basically trying to recapture anybody that hasn't been super active within your newsletter. Sometimes you can kind of send them an email and get them back into that newsletter and get them more active on the list. Again, already said 50% conversion on landing pages, 50% conversion on lead magnets, and then just a clean, also I'd say is like a clean newsletter template that you can use week after week is probably the only real focus that you have to do if you do start sending a newsletter. And here's another question you had as well.
Yeah. So how does Beehive use the recommendation kind of network system and Boost, and how should I use them to grow kind of my stuff even further?
Yeah, this is like really good question, because I think a lot of people, a lot of founders don't understand why they should choose ConvertKit over Beehive. So on Beehive, typically you can boost and you can earn 50 cents to $1.50 per subscriber you send to someone else's newsletter. Again, this gets very lucrative if you have a good subscriber list that's active, right? The ad network is separate, and again, I'll talk about this a little bit more later. But it can pay anywhere between $2 to $4 per click on whatever ad they're promoting within your newsletter. The big bucks, though, in newsletters are made on promoting someone else's product or service in your newsletter, meaning they get their own section. And again, those can go for anywhere between $500 to like $10,000 to be promoted in someone's newsletter. But I would just recommend both. Like use them both immediately. There's no risk. There's no downside. It's not super. You're not going to burn your audience doing so. Like start now. And I think if you start on Beehive, I actually think they give you a Beehive boost like right away. So I would just use it. There's no reason not to. You also had this question, yeah.
Yeah. So at what point for me does monetization make sense? So is there's like specific numbers or like anything
Yeah.
you push for? Because I assume the bigger you are, the kind of it makes a huge difference on how big you currently are and kind of and so on.
Yeah, I think what's most important, honestly, and I didn't include this on the next slide, but like, do they align with what like your values, your brand as a whole? I think that's the most important part. As far as when to introduce it, that's up to you. I always recommend once you hit 1,000 subscribers, you have at least 50% open rate. You're getting around 3 to 5% click through rate on your email newsletter. Like you're good to go, but you can do it much earlier. It doesn't. I can't say it's that important on when to start. Again, as I said here, like you can monetize day one. It doesn't really matter. I know some founders prefer starting with coaching consulting. Some people do paid recs. Some people do affiliate marketing, even with tiny audiences. It doesn't really matter too much. My recommendation would be to get to 1,000 subscribers, get a decent open rate and decent click through rate, and you should be good to go. Um, I'll talk about this also a little bit later, but the whole flywheel of newsletters is like you get, a brand deal or some sort of promotional promo deal within your newsletter. That could be again $500 to $1,500 to $10,000. Take that money and then reinvest it into buying more subscribers for your newsletter. It's built into Beehive already, but it gets very lucrative if every week you have a promo. You can just keep on dumping money into like boosting or promos, paid sponsorships, and it'll end up growing your list faster and faster the bigger you get. And that's why those big newsletters that have sold for millions of dollars, like Milk Road, they were exceptional at just reinvesting money back into paid ads and growing their subscriber list. You also had this question as well.
Yeah. So what monetization paths work for someone in kind of my space,
Yeah.
and yeah, what should I focus on specifically there?
Yeah, so paid off new subscribers. So they have a boost. This is all featured in Beehive as well. Boost to monetize. That's the first. Um, Monetizing with premium ads. You can source your own advertisements or do direct sponsorships. So again, as I said, they get a feature within your newsletter. Um, you can also go out to SaaS companies, to something like ClickUp, for example, and send them a media kit, which would basically include how many active readers you have, your open rate, click through rate, etc., the gender, where they're located. And this is kind of where it gets really lucrative because with a big list, you'll get more data, and then you can sell that obviously to companies. They really want that. That's where the big bucks are made. This is just an example of a pitch deck I found, but hopefully that answers the question. Do you have any other questions about that?
No, I think it's quite clear.
Yeah. Monetization paths. Yeah. If you want to go ahead.
So yeah, what are kind of the best monetization paths for someone in the creative slash marketing space?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a few. Obviously, coaching and consulting is like the the best, and the reason is obviously it's usually high ticket or it's pre-recorded videos that people just kind of go through over and over and over again. Um, what's most important though is if you do, pursue coaching or consulting is like you really understand the customer's problems, and that's I think the benefit of doing it. But you could do coaching consulting, you could do create digital products, cohort based courses, sponsorships as well. I mean, you can do merch. There's a long list of things that you can do to monetize your newsletter. I kind of talked about it earlier as well. Like um, a lot of it's just built into Beehive already. They really are trying to help founders and creators make the most from newsletters. So just simply using the features that are already built in, that'll be plenty. That will be absolutely plenty. Yeah,
And yeah, now obviously I've got me quite excited. There's a lot of like more than I expected
yeah,
potential abilities like when it comes to newsletters. So
yeah,
if I decide to start today and I want to actually grow this and make it a real proper newsletter, how do I recommend my weekly workflow to be?
yeah.
So let's say I produce once per week.
Sure. Yeah, if you want to do once per week. So typically, what I do is we start with audience research, identify their problems. Typically, it's going to be like 10 to 12 problems usually that every audience faces. Take all those questions and kind of answer and address those within content. And it's just week after week, I would just recommend really just doing that. Refer to what your audience is complaining about, what they struggle with. Um, to be honest, there, if you just, I use something like Poppy AI pretty often, and I'll break down other, you know, I'll find videos that other creators are creating, and I'll kind of identify pain points that potentially came up in those videos. For example, if you made a ClickUp anti-gravity video or something like that, you could look at another creator, post it into Poppy, and then identify all the pain points and problems. And then I just use that for the newsletter and then also for the content. And that saves me a ton of time. It's not hard to do. Um, so that's honestly what I'd recommend. But as far as like, what my workflow looks like, as far as like week to week, usually spend around 3 to 6 hours weekly. Mondays research, Tuesday, Thursdays for content, Fridays for writing, and then Saturdays just kind of final touches. Typically, that's kind of what works best for me. So I'd probably advise something similar as well.
And to the maybe most important question here,
Yeah.
to the end here, what metric, like what metrics actually matter versus like vanity metrics I should like just don't think about.
Yeah. If I were to like, this is the only, like, I watch them like a hawk. These are the only ones that I really care about. Um, So open rates on here, I think, especially with something like Gmail, there's sometimes like it's not super accurate. Beehive does a pretty good job at identifying real opens. I would just focus on CTR, click through rate, the landing page conversion. I'll throw in the lead magnet conversion, and then the cost per subscriber. You want to aim for 50 cents to $2 per subscriber. Watching that number specifically is how you identify how much money you can spend on ads and then how much of a return you'll get. So if you want to go down the monetization path, understanding cost per sub is by far the most important. But again, open rate CTR is also important because that's what gets you the sponsorships. So with that, do you have any other questions? Is that all adding up? Does that make sense?
I mean, we just have to start sending, right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
No,
Cool, man.
everything is clear.
Yeah.
Honestly, you like when you learn something new. I never would have expected that there's like this is so detailed. There's so many features, so many things you
Yeah.
can do. Like when I think newsletters, I think okay, it's just like an email list. I can email people, but
Right.
there's so many ways of earning money and kind of just using a newsletter.
Yeah.
You have opened my eyes. Wow. Okay, it's interesting.
I'm glad. I'm glad. Yeah. Newsletters are there's a lot going on with newsletters. I didn't realize until I, like you said, I learned about it. But I will say, start a newsletter, start sending. There's never been any founder that has sent or published more content that made less money. It's just not how it works.
True.
So, yeah. Thank you for hopping on. And yeah, cool, man.
Thank you as well.